and thank you for joining today's webinar, The Importance of Integration to Salesforce Success. I'm excited to be on today's conference call and presentation with two leaders in the industry. Jeff Henderson from Flexera Software will be providing you with an overview of how his company has really tackled the integration challenge and helped really accelerate adoption of Salesforce with Informatica Cloud. We also have Alan Schwab, who is our lead specialist on the technical side, who will go into some details and provide you with a fairly comprehensive demonstration of Informatica Cloud towards the end of the presentation. So I do want to remind you, a lot of people coming into the webinar now. We do want to make this interactive, so please use the side chat panel, and we want to get your questions, and we'll just dive right in. So I wanted to start with a quick introduction on just generally on integration. And hopefully many of you are making your travel plans for Dreamforce 2011, which is coming up very fast, and Informatica will be a gold sponsor again this year at the conference. So I pulled a couple of slides from last year's Dreamforce just to get you into the mode. So last year there were a number of sessions on integration, and this one actually came from a Salesforce presentation, where it talked about the importance of integration to really moving you to Cloud 2. So collaboration, real-time, productivity were really highlighted as some of the benefits of having the right integration strategy. So the typical integration scenarios we see at Informatica are really, as you see on the slide here, often very process-centric. So synchronize customer master between two systems. So you may have accounts and contacts in Salesforce, and you have accounts and contacts in an ERP system, like an SAP or a NetSuite or an Oracle e-business. Product master is another. Opportunity history and opportunity to order are very common processes. So you have your orders in your order management or financial application, and you want to be able to automatically reflect the closing of those bidirectionally in each system. The goal ultimately is to keep your sales team, your support team, your marketers, really the people who are living and breathing in Salesforce in the one application, not requiring them to have to go to multiple places to key in information and access different sources of data. Another key area in terms of scenarios is just generally around data management. So Jeff will talk about data replication. A lot of our customers are moving significant volumes of data from Salesforce into an analytics environment for reporting and analysis, as well as data quality, another very common scenario for Salesforce integration. So the key point here really we wanted to highlight is that integration absolutely will drive success with Salesforce, CRM, and Force.com. And this is a great quote. This is from one of our customers on the App Exchange. I didn't write it. He wrote, "Salesforce without integration is like a house on a beautiful island with no way to get there." And what we find is a lot of organizations put it off. They wait and think, oh, we'll get up and running with Salesforce, and then we'll think about integrating with other systems in phase 2 or phase 3. So our recommendation, if you are just moving in this direction, is absolutely to think it through early and build a plan from the outset, as opposed to kicking it down the curb and thinking that you'll integrate later as those requirements come up. So what does integration look like to an end user? Here's just a couple of screens, and Alan can show you some of this as well in his demonstration. But here's a couple of our speakers from Dreamforce last year, where you have an account record, and in that account record, you're also showing data from other sources. So here's data coming in from a legacy CRM system and equipment data coming from a homegrown custom application. Point is, from a Salesforce user's perspective, it's seamless. This is their Salesforce screen. They don't need to know that all these other fields are coming from other systems. Another example I thought was interesting from Dreamforce was integrating Salesforce with the HR system. And here's a few links over to SuccessFactors. And the interesting scenario here is this company is also looking at how to evolve this to integrating the HR profile for each employee with the Chatter profile, really keeping that single view, again, within the Salesforce environment. Another common example is billing data. So you've got a couple of screens, billings by account, billing by owner, billing by product. The ultimate objective here, and this is from a customer presentation at Dreamforce, the goal is to have one system in real time, insecure, very, very secure, again, driving productivity and driving adoption of the Salesforce platform. So last point I wanted to highlight before giving you a quick introduction to Informatica Cloud is Chatter is really taking this to the next level. So hopefully all of you are moving towards adopting Chatter in your organization. I can tell you internally in our group at Informatica, we have Chatter connected to our trial. So when we see people moving through different stages of the Informatica Cloud trial, that's then associated with the lead object and the contact record. So we can actually see as people are moving from different stages into the trial, you can subscribe to those feeds and follow it through the Chatter screen. We're seeing a lot of our customers do that with order status. So Chatter is really taking integration to the next level, bringing the most relevant, timely, trustworthy information to users where they are, as opposed to the users having to go and find it, through search and it's hunting and pecking. So we're pretty excited about where this is going, and you're going to see some more interesting announcements on this front at Dreamforce in September. So what we believe is happening now is really it is a hybrid IT world. And I think Jeff will talk about this as they've experienced it at Flexera. But really, it's not a matter of are you going to integrate with legacy systems. It's a matter of how. It's for most organizations, they don't have the luxury of moving to 100% cloud computing-based infrastructure, certainly not overnight. So whether it's software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service, the key is that all of these systems are integrated, communicating, data is flowing seamlessly and securely, and you're delivering more value to the application portfolio in your organization. One of the challenges we've seen at Informatica is really around how do we get the business what they need, keeping things well governed and well controlled from an IT perspective. And I want to ask Jeff a couple of questions about this when we get to his overview at Flexera. But what we've seen is software as a service adoption has been super high in the line of business. Business groups are really drawn to the subscription model, to the rapid implementation times and ease of use. And over the last few years, IT is really coming around and looking at ways to enable this and work closely with the business. But certainly for a few years there's in many organizations out there, there's still a lot of politics and a lot of challenges kind of aligning these two worlds. We definitely see integration as being a great bridging opportunity. And Informatica is uniquely positioned here because we have a strong heritage in the IT organization with our core platform. So just a quick summary of who we are and what we do. If you're new to this market and haven't heard about Informatica before, integration is what we do. We are the #1 independent leader in data integration. The company has been in business for about 15 years, publicly traded, and growing at a really nice pace. So I just wanted to highlight here that this is our sole focus. About 5 years ago, we built a on-demand cloud-based business and developed a multi-tenant cloud data integration service, which is what we'll talk about and you'll see in action today. From an update of Informatica, we do have about 1,300 companies now running Informatica Cloud, and we are processing over 100,000 jobs a day and moving now over 18 billion transactions per month. So if you haven't heard of Informatica Cloud, you can visit informaticacloud.com, and if you want to see the volumes, the jobs we're running and the records we're processing, you can also visit trust.informaticacloud.com, and you can see system status updates as well. So that is my introduction, and we've had a lot of people join as I was introducing who we are and what we do. I do want to remind you, I will take a break and we will encourage questions for the next part of today's presentation. So definitely use the panels on the side as we introduce our other two speakers. So Alan, before we hand it over to Jeff, I'm wondering if you can take a minute to explain the architecture of Informatica Cloud to everybody on today's call.
Thank you, Darren. So as you can see here, the Informatica Cloud solution, I guess first and foremost, it is a true cloud-based solution. So we really follow all of the cloud tenets, ease of use. I think you'll see that when we get into the demo. Ease of install. In fact, there is no install, as you would imagine. It's a matter of provisioning a customer's org in the multi-tenant application, and ease of administration and maintenance going forward. So, you'll hear me when I get into the demo draw a lot of parallels to Salesforce, and certainly one of those is the fact that, we will go through a similar process to Salesforce in that we'll bring our application down, we'll upgrade the application periodically, and you'll inherit those upgrades, that new functionality, new features, with no burden on your part. Part of this architecture, as Darren started to build this slide out here, is to download a component of this architecture we call the secure agent. The process is very similar to getting on the WebEx today. It's a one-time exercise. It's self-downloading. It's self-maintaining, self-installing. You simply have to allow it to happen. What that ends up giving you, the benefit it provides, is you get to take advantage of, again, all of the advantages of cloud-based computing, but at the same time, when one of these jobs needs to run, the Informatica Cloud application is in communication with that local secure agent that's now running behind your firewall, and it sends the instruction set down, and that secure agent is actually the engine that will process that integration job. And the benefit, of course, is because that agent is behind your firewall, you have end-to-end security. There's no punching holes in your firewall, no dropping data into a DMZ. That agent can connect to your local data, whether it's a data warehouse, another on-premise application, and it also securely connects to any and all cloud applications, specifically Salesforce, so that, again, you have that end-to-end security without introducing any of the risks of cloud-based integration.
So, Alan, a question has come in about different data sources, and this slide shows the agent, facilitating the data movement between an on-premise environment and a set of cloud applications. What about connecting to different on-premise systems, say a MySQL database to an Oracle database? Would you support that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, what you see on this slide is just representative. So whether you see something like Oracle or MySQL on the slide or not, those are supported endpoints. But more to Darren's point, this is a solution that, although it is very popular in the Salesforce integration world, there is no requirement per se that this be Salesforce-only integration. In other words, this is a solution that can handle on-premise to cloud integration, cloud to on-premise integration, as well as cloud-to-cloud integration and on-premise to on-premise integration.
Okay, great. And then one more question before we hand it over to Jeff is, can you move data from Salesforce into a MySQL database residing on EC2?
The short answer is yes, you can. A little bit more of a long-winded answer is this whole concept of these secure agents, because they're so easy to deal with, a lot of our customers have chosen to deploy these wherever they need them. Now, technically speaking, there's only a requirement to have a minimum of a single secure agent for your org. With that said, though, there are customers that will choose to say, I'm going to deploy an agent up on EC2 to move data from Salesforce into a MySQL or an Oracle database running on EC2. I'm going to we have a customer who has deployed agents inside their partners' firewalls to be able to pull partner data directly into their Salesforce instance without forcing the data to round trip through their own firewall. So there's a lot of flexibility provided with this architecture.
That's awesome. And actually, there is a case study on our Informatica Cloud website on Telegraph Media Group. They are doing just that. They have the agent hosted in an Amazon EC2 instance, and they're replicating data from Salesforce into that database for analytics. So it actually is fairly common, especially for the data replication use case. So let me just give you a quick summary of our different editions, and then Jeff, I'll hand it over to you to kind of take us through what you guys are doing and have done over at Flexera. So Informatica Cloud, like Salesforce, is available on an editions-based model. We have a basic, standard, and enterprise edition. And the enterprise edition is really a combination of our on-premise software and our cloud-based service. So that is becoming increasingly popular in large organizations. The basic edition is really data synchronization, application synchronization, and the standard edition includes data replication and data quality capabilities. So you can see all that information on the different editions on the Informatica Cloud website. So Jeff, without any further intro, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself and take us away. So we'll make you the presenter.
All right. Thanks, Darren. My name is Jeff Henderson. I'm the Director of Global Business Systems with Flexera Software. And I will just jump us to a brief slide, Flexera Software Overview. We are a global company with over 20 years' experience across multiple industries. Since I want to take as much time as possible to discuss our Informatica Cloud implementation today, I'll let you take a glance at that slide, and I'm going to move on. So our challenge initially was a couple of different things. Flexera Software is, as a company, is 3 years old. We were spun off from another company 3 years ago. And really are a mashup of a lot of different software companies come together with products that complement each other to form a cohesive story. But in forming that cohesive story around our products, all those different companies came with a lot of different legacy systems. So a big challenge, and the primary reason why I came to Flexera was to standardize, stabilize, and put in a foundation for growing the company. And so the first big challenge was addressing our global teams of sales and professional services folks that are all over the planet that were really struggling working with some legacy on-prem systems. And that is what led us to select Salesforce.com as our end-state CRM platform for the entirety of the business. For enterprise sales and ProServe, they could be in multiple cities, multiple days. Connectivity is sometimes an issue. Need to be able to access a system, whether it's to update an opportunity, input time on a project, correspond with peers working on a project in multiple locations around the globe. And to do it easily and seamlessly. Primary drivers for us were, other than that ease of use, the customizable forecasting capabilities of Salesforce.com, and then pipeline management and the secure management of the pipeline. Initial implementation of Salesforce for us was 3 months, really 2.5 months, for our enterprise field sales organization and supporting personnel. And so the initial deployment was 110 users. We onboarded then global consulting organization in a subsequent 3-month effort, and we currently have 240 licensed users running on Salesforce.com. Integration was critical, obviously, for us, as we were only initially moving one group and the supporting personnel onto the platform. And so integration and synchronization with our legacy on-prem primary CRM was critical path, particularly around some of the things that Darren mentioned earlier, your basics, synchronization of account data, contact data, and other relevant data as it relates to opportunities and other information that's shared across these systems. Since it was critical path and it was a very short initial implementation time frame, went out to the marketplace. We were a new Salesforce customer. So began by discussing with both Salesforce and then going to the App Exchange, going to the Developer Force community and having some discussions with folks there on what the landscape looked like for on-prem to cloud integration. Our real drivers were time was of the essence. And we wanted something that just, again, worked. And a lot of us had myself personally, a lot of experience working with Informatica Power Center. And Informatica as it's OEM'd within Oracle, as it had been OEM'd by Siebel and several other enterprise COTS packages that I'd worked with in the past. And so my journey basically began with downloading, installing, trialing out a lot of these different services. And with Informatica's, I had the agent installed, configured, and a replication of data built in about 10 minutes. So the sales cycle was really accomplished without a single demonstration. And as I said, I began using the replication functionality prior to that process even being initiated. It was 10 minutes for me to get that initial replication built. Our primary requirements were for data synchronization and replication. And then the final obvious driver is with cloud-based ETL, it required no infrastructure costs or changes for myself, and aligned with our overall direction at Flexera Software of minimizing our on-prem systems, as we are a company that operates North America, in the UK, Germany, Japan, India, Australia. Today, we have offices in all those locations, in some of those locations, multiple offices, and are going to continue to expand as a company, both organically and through acquisition. And so the idea is that I need systems that are available everywhere. And I don't wish to radically expand my infrastructure footprint or have to replicate infrastructure across various locations. So again, the overall direction of the business is to shrink our on-prem footprint. We have all of these offices all across the globe, and rely more on SaaS offerings that are available anywhere we might happen to be.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question for you on that. When you were evaluating integration capabilities or solutions, how important was it for these to be cloud-based? And did you look at on-premise options here as well?
We did, but because I began with, my own prime directive of on-prem downsizing, even though I was much more familiar with some pretty time-tested on-prem integration options, some that we had used today previously, or some of the iterations of the company had used. Really, it was cloud-based ETL that was the focus from the beginning. And in particular, cloud-based ETL that gave us unlimited flexibility when it came to on-prem to cloud, cloud to cloud, on-prem to on-prem. Again, we are moving out of the business of being a company that invests in traditional IT infrastructure and the personnel and the operating costs and everything else surrounding building environments ourselves. We are much more focused on the speed at which we can bring to market business enabling and advancing technologies in support of our business processes. Not having to worry about hardware acquisition, multiple environments, OS upgrades, you name it, is absolutely invaluable and allows us to focus on delivering value to the business, which is what IT really should be about, as opposed to managing our facilities.
Great. I love that message.
Very simple topology diagram here. So we have standard edition for data sync and replication. We have a single Informatica Cloud agent running on a MySQL 08R2 Data Hub server. And the Data Hub syncs and transforms data from multiple legacy on-prem environments, our legacy primary CRM and our Oracle 11.5.10 EBS environment, as well as several additional systems from all of these legacy companies that now make up Flexera Software, and we're shrinking those as we're moving the entirety of the company onto Salesforce. And then we have two primary active task flows for synchronization. Again, very seamless, very simple. The agent install is minutes, and you can be building a sync or a replication through, as Alan will demonstrate, their walkthrough wizard in minutes. And as you become more advanced, it certainly lends itself to IT being able to transition even some of the responsibility for managing the infrastructure onto maybe some of your power business customers, which is, again, a big value proposition. So let's talk about our results a little bit. For data synchronization service and data replication service overview, that's DSS or DRS. Wasn't trying to be obtuse there. We have 52 synchronization tasks and one single daily production replication. Account and contact a task flow, which is a collection of 11 different tasks that you can specify and run in any sequence. Runs every 10 minutes to basically keep account and contact information in sync between our legacy on-prem CRM and Salesforce.com and everything that's happening there. Actuals from our Oracle EBS environment are upserted via the Data Hub every 30 minutes for pipeline and actuals revenue forecasting. We also have an opportunity replication running via Informatica Cloud that grabs the opportunity, basically taking that opportunity, replicating information out of those opportunities down into the Data Hub, where we then combine it with information flowing, actuals flowing from Oracle EBS, apply our complex revenue recognition rules and everything else, and then back up into Salesforce so we can provide our executive management team with a near real-time revenue dashboard. That's a mashup of pipeline out of our legacy CRM, out of Salesforce, and out of Oracle. 3 different systems feed into that data, which then Informatica is shuttling between the environments, ultimately ending up in Salesforce as that is the preferred presentation layer for now my iPad-carrying executive management team. Like I said, closed-won opportunities in Salesforce are also sent every 10 minutes currently to the legacy CRM to kick off the order management process, which again lives back in our on-prem environments. We also recently have begun to port a lot of our internal applications that we built, small Java, .NET applications, porting a lot of those over to the Force.com platform, the first of which are more employee-based. So a lot of our employee information and homegrown time-off application are now running on the Force.com platform, and we've leveraged the Informatica Cloud sync to manage the information flow between, again, our on-prem environment. That data is flowing in, again, up out of Oracle. We run Oracle HRMS. So up out of Oracle into the Data Hub and then up into Salesforce, back and forth between those environments. So from an ROI perspective, our initial implementation cycle was 2 weeks. And that included slight modification of my initial 10-minute full replication, and then the construction of our primary set of tasks. There are 11 in all, which are grouped in Informatica terms in something called a task flow, which Alan will demonstrate. About 2 weeks' time, we used 1 day of professional service time to get us quick started, with 0 hardware costs. Other than the 1 day of ProCert time, 0 training costs. In similar projects in the past, If you just look at it from a time perspective, this was one internal resource over 10 days. And if I think back and across other projects, the ROI is such that it paid for itself at least 2 times over on that initial implementation, and that's not something that I can say about every technology. Also, with the extensible plugin architecture and integration for Power Center and Power Exchange for future growth, that's awesome as well. That kind of extends on the capabilities of Informatica Cloud to go on-prem to on-prem and cloud to cloud. I know somebody had a question about accessing DB running on EC2. We have some of those needs as well for some of our future considerations as we're moving the entirety of the on-prem environment into the cloud. So we're looking at EC2, very interested in database.com, and we'll have some of those challenges as well. But again, we're already using an integration technology that will be able to support all of those things. And we don't have to change anything. Nobody has to learn anything new, and no additional expense acquired. So absolutely fantastic for us. That basically takes one thing off the table that I'd have to worry about. As far as next steps go, we're going to move more toward direct integrations using plugins. So today I mentioned the Data Hub server, which is a SQL 2008 R2 server. As we move and standardize completely on Salesforce.com, we'll be moving to use direct integration plugins with EBS and with some of the other environments, more so than the direct today. And then also moving to the Informatica Cloud standard for the REST API, taking advantage of event-based scheduling, which would be very powerful for us, and as well as getting ourselves a full dev and test sandbox instance of Informatica Cloud.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the overview, Jeff. I do have a question. A couple of people have commented on the ROI point, which is great. How do you? So you mentioned hours of developer time. How do you look at calculating an ROI for these kind of investments? Do you have a standard process that you run through?
Yeah, I mean, we just have from some of the integrations that we have had foisted on us previously. We bring on a new company, and this was prior to us being on Salesforce.com, and we were using some legacy ETL tools to move data from one company's CRM environment, things like that, to another. Just the number of hours, number of resources, average rate with Fringe for those resources, I can pretty readily calculate out what that would have cost or what that did cost in terms of some of our other projects that we've had to do relative to the cost of Informatica Cloud, both from a licensing perspective and then from a time perspective as well, from a resource cost perspective. So specifically, that's how I would make my statement that it paid for itself 2x initially.
Okay, awesome. That's really helpful. Okay, well, Jeff will stay on for some questions or comments, but I think we want to actually dive into Alan's part of today's webinar, kind of going through what this all looks like. There have been some questions about how this is different than other solutions on the market, and even how it's different than Informatica Power Center. So, Alan, if you can kind of think about those as you go through, and then Jeff, if you can stay on to answer any questions that come in at the same time, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, I certainly will. Thank you, Darren. Okay, so let me share my desktop here, and we will jump right into the demo. Darren, I guess if I could get confirmation from you that my desktop is coming through correctly.
Yes, it is.
All right, terrific. Okay, so we'll jump into a demo here, and I'll try to reinforce a few of the points and key ROI bullets that Jeff mentioned, specifically around ease of use, speed to market, zero investment, and extensibility here as we go through the demo. What you see on my screen here is I'm logged into the Informatica Cloud application. The only thing that you've really missed that you didn't see was, of course, it's an entirely browser-based user interface, as you would expect. So I navigated to a bookmark. I provided credentials to get into my cloud application, and it dropped me into the app here. Once you're in the app, as you would expect, a very tab-driven environment. On the home page, you get an intro screen where you can get access directly to all the services that are available. Today we're going to talk about and demo the data synchronization service and, hopefully, time permitting, the data replication service. For those that are interested, there are other services. A couple of them, specifically one called Data Quality Assessment, is really centered around data quality and the quality of data in your Salesforce org. Although we may not get to that today, feel free to contact us, and we'd be happy to get you more information. A little bit about the UI here. On the home page, you have access to a couple of environments or areas that are important. You can go over and in real time see what's happening, what jobs are running, and the status of those jobs. You can get a history of what has already transpired, the success or failure. You can drill into those jobs. So you have full auditability and trackability of what has taken place. Over on the administration tab, again, by design, since this is a true cloud app, we've really offloaded most of the administrative burden from you. But with that said, there are a few things that you can do here to really influence the behavior of this solution. So you can go in, for example, and set up automated notification for both success and failure of any jobs that are run. Who should that notification go to? An individual list of folks, whatever is appropriate. You can also set up things like password policies, the expiration. You can even set up what we call two-factor authentication, which is the ability to put in place those named IP ranges similar to Salesforce so that you know and can control exactly who's accessing the Informatica Cloud application and specifically your org. Over here on the configuration tab, this is the area, first and foremost, where you'd go to do that very easy agent download that Jeff referred to. So this is that agent that you will allow to run behind your firewall. Very simple process to accomplish. Click on the Download Agent button, pick the platform that you want that agent to run on, and basically sit back and allow it to happen. From that point forward, it's self-downloading, it's self-installing. Ultimately, you're going to end up with an entry here on the agent's page, and when the status turns to active, that's your indicator that everything is up and running and ready, and this agent is available to participate in an integration job being run. You can also set up, or pre-configure, I suppose you could say, some common objects here, things like a schedule or a connection. Pretty self-explanatory, but very quickly here, a schedule, it's just your way to easily go in and put in place a schedule that you could use recurringly as you go forward and associate with any and all jobs that you may configure. So you can set the schedule up to be any sort of batch necessary, every month, every week, every N number of days, hours, or as Jeff mentioned, even every N number of minutes, every 5 minutes, every 10 or 20 minutes. So set up your schedule, make it available to use, and you can very easily, again, associate that with a job going forward. A very similar concept here with connections. So in that, you can set these connections up once and then reuse them over and over again. And a connection is nothing more than pointing our cloud services to your data, specifically that secure agent that's running behind your firewall to your data. So at a minimum, in someone similar to Jeff's situation, you'd have at least a couple of connections, probably a connection to Jeff's Salesforce org, and you can see I have one here to my Salesforce org. And these connections are very easy to set up. When it's Salesforce, it's a simple matter of giving us the Salesforce username and password. From this point forward, everything else about Salesforce becomes completely graphical. Drag and drop, point and click, drop-down lists, check boxes. You'll never see anything about web services or the Salesforce API or any of that sort of topic, even though, of course, everyone understands that that's what's happening behind the scenes in order to access the Salesforce world. But in this case, you simply provide the username and password, and we will basically take it from there. And the concept is the same for any other connection or endpoint. For example, if you needed to connect to a local Oracle application or any other local data set, you can set up these connections. I'll quickly here show you another connection I have for a local Oracle app. And in this case, it's standard Oracle connectivity info, the username, the password, where is Oracle running, what's the Oracle SID or service name. So very, very typical from an Oracle connectivity perspective. And then again, we'll basically take it from there. So with all of that explanation in place, ultimately we get to the Data Services tab, and this is where those services are available to you. We're going to start with the data synchronization service here and jump in, and the easiest way to really illustrate some of those key points Jeff brought up, like ease of use and speed to market, are to go in and show you what it takes to configure one of these jobs literally from scratch. So I'm going to click on the new button here in the data synchronization service, and what you see is you get dropped into a wizard. The 6 steps are laid out for the wizard are laid out across the top, and this is the entire effort to configure an integration job. So if we take a very typical use case, and I think it was one that Jeff mentioned, I know it was one that Darren mentioned, something like customer master, and we'll use that as our premise for the demo here today. And so our goal is going to be to set up a job that will sync customer master data from an on-premise app into Salesforce. And so we'll give this job a name in step 1 of the wizard. We'll identify what sort of activity we want to associate with this job. Is this always going to be inserting new records into Salesforce? In my case here, every time this runs, is it going to be updating existing records? Is it a combination of those 2 activities? So we can arbitrarily choose what the right action is. We'll make that choice, and we move on to step 2 of the process. Here in step 2, here's where that whole concept of connections starts to come into play. So I pointed out a couple of connections earlier that I had pre-configured, the Oracle connection as well as the Salesforce connection. So we mentioned earlier that this is a solution that can really satisfy any-to-any integration, on-premise to cloud, cloud to on-premise, as well as cloud to cloud and on-premise to on-premise. And the only difference in setting these up as far as which of those you're trying to accomplish is the choices you make in steps 2 and steps 3. So in this case, with our customer master scenario, I'm going to choose my local connection in step 2. It uses that information to dynamically connect to that application and gives me a drop-down of everything that's out in that application. So now it's a simple matter of saying, where is my source data for this particular job, in this case, customer master. It's in the account table, ERP, in my source application. And maybe it's in a single object back there. Maybe we need to join multiple objects to get the full data set. We can certainly do that. In this case today, I'm going to stick with a single object just to keep things simple. We have a lot of ground to cover. And in that case, I get a quick little preview of the data here, and I have accomplished step 2 of the process. So then we move on to step 3. Here we again will use that, take advantage of that concept of a connection. We'll drop down our list. We'll pick our Salesforce connection. And as I said, once you've provided and configured a connection, everything else becomes drop-down lists, checkboxes, drag and drop. So in this case with Salesforce, once you've chosen that as your target connection, we give you a drop-down list of everything that's out in Salesforce. What you don't see is anything about the API, anything about web services. What you do see is business-level metadata, business-level knowledge of what's in the Salesforce application. So all the standard objects, account, lead, contact, opportunity, but also any custom objects you may have. So if you've extended the Sales or Service Cloud in any way, if you've installed a Force.com application, you're going to see those objects here as well. Now, in my case, we're doing Customer Master. I'm going to pick the account object. It again gives me a little preview of what's in Salesforce, and I have accomplished step 3 of the process. Moving on to step 4 here, this is a completely optional step, but it is an opportunity for you to be selective in what you're going to pull or extract out of whatever it is you identified as your source back here in step 2. So I could go in and I could filter for obvious reasons. Maybe I only want to integrate particular customer master records, particular record types, I should say, within customer master. Maybe I'm only trying to integrate a particular geographic data set. So you can make those choices by easily filtering data. But again, it is optional. So for the sake of time, I'm going to skip right over that and move on in the wizard, because I really want to get to step 5 here. This is kind of the heart of what you want this job to accomplish. So what you see here in this step, you see the source fields on the left based on how you configured step 2. You see the target fields here in the middle based on how you configured step 3. Our goal is to populate this third column. Now there's already some entries in here, and the reason is, again, we're trying to maximize ease of use here. So the first thing we do is we look at field names, and wherever we see an identical or nearly identical field name in both the source and the target, we make the assumption you want to map that source field over automatically. You can get rid of these altogether. You can re-perform that auto match. You can get rid of these individually for the ones you don't want. Again, the goal is just to maximize ease of use here. Where the field names are very different, which of course will be very common, it's a simple drag and drop. So for example, I can map account ID down to external ID, and that will be the flow of data from my Oracle application into Salesforce in this case. I could also come down very quickly and map account name over to the name field within the account object of Salesforce.
Hey, Alan, quite a few people on the webinar are familiar with Power Center. Can you just show some of the other things that might be more Power Center-like that would be available from this screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So the other big thing that you can do here, in addition to doing the direct mapping of data, is you can this is your opportunity to deal with the anomalies in the data between the applications. So a real easy example to illustrate here might be your on-premise app, in my case my Oracle app, might have 2 address lines along with city, state, and postcode. And over in Salesforce, at least out of the box with standard fields, you only have a single address line along with city, state, and zip for any address, whether it's billing, shipping, mailing, whatever. So in other words, you need to merge these 2 source fields together into a single field here in Salesforce, which is something that very commonly happens in the Power Center world. You need to do transformation of data. And so you have some of those same capabilities here in Informatica Cloud. For example, I can take address 1, drop it into Billing Street. I can take address 2 and drop it into Billing Street, and we'll automatically build that concatenation rule to merge those 2 fields together as we integrate this customer master data into Salesforce. And you can see I can follow this link where I can get to an editor page where not only do I have access to that concatenation rule, but there's a lot of Informatica/Power Center functions that are available here, somewhere in the vicinity of around 100 of these functions. So if I look at them categorically, of course I see the concatenation that I just used, but that's one of many. Trimming, padding, substringing, replacing strings, replacing characters. If I open up another category here like special, being able to apply validation logic like if, then, else, or decode, which is basically a translation. You may have a gender field in your source app that's 0 or 1, and by the time that data gets into Salesforce, you may want to decode it or translate it and have a 0 turn into male and a 1 turn into female, and you can make that happen here. And of course, all of these functions can be used individually, collectively, so that you have quite a bit of power here within step 5 to really apply the right business rules and transform rules to your data. But even these functions collectively are just one area of functionality. There's other things that you can do. Very quickly here, maybe you want to try to clean up a little bit of your data and apply some standardization to your data as you move it from source to target. And let's make the assumption that over in our source application, billing state is an abbreviation over there, and by the time you get it into Salesforce, you don't want to just simply map in that abbreviated state. you want to clean it up and translate it into the full spelled out version of state. So I don't want to just simply map that element up. Instead, I can do a lookup and basically translate that through a lookup into a spelled out version. I can do my lookup anywhere I want, any connection that I have. So I can look up into Salesforce, I can look up into Oracle. In this case, I'm going to do a lookup into a little file I have. I can then pick that object, in this case the file, where I'll perform the lookup. I then decide I'm going to pick the field on my source that contains the abbreviation, match that in my lookup to where that abbreviation exists, and then I'm going to return the spelled out version of that state in this case. And now that's the data element that's mapped to my state field instead of simply moving over that non-standard version of what state is supposed to look like. So a quick little example of how you can accomplish things with lookups as well. Now, that's what's going on here in step 5. The only other thing to then do is say, when should this job run? Do you want to leave it unscheduled and invoke this through our REST API and have more of an event-driven scenario where maybe you set up a little button with a bit of Apex code behind it in Salesforce and invoke this job by clicking a button in Salesforce? Or do you want to run this on some defined schedule? And if so, you can come in, you can pick a schedule you've already created. You can go out and create a brand new schedule right on the fly. In either case, associate the schedule, and at a minimum, that's all it takes to configure one of these jobs. So now you can see I've got my customer master job sitting here. It's a scheduled task within my task list here, and will run literally on schedule. I never have to log in here. I'll get notification on both successful and failed runs, and I'll have an idea of what happened if in the event that something does fail or take place. Maybe Salesforce is in a maintenance cycle, maybe Informatica is in a maintenance cycle, and that's why my job didn't run, but I'll be notified of that automatically. The other thing that I want to point out here before we move on to data replication is very frequently, as is the case with Jeff and Flexera, you'll end up with a number of these jobs, and there's a particular sequence or order flow that you want these jobs to run in. And to do that, you can very easily come over and configure something we call a task flow. So I can create this task flow. I can decide to schedule jobs at the task flow level now rather than the task level. And then I can start to add the members of the task flow. So maybe the first member is I want to load up contact information into Salesforce. And then I come back and I get another job, and maybe it's the account load that I just created, I should say the customer master job that I just created. And maybe after I've added my members, I realize, I want to switch the order of these because I want account to load first in Salesforce, and I want contact to load after that, so that Informatica, as we're loading the data, can maintain the relational integrity of the data and make sure we relate a contact back to its corresponding account record as we're loading that data into Salesforce. So we can make those decisions, run them in the right order, click OK, and we will now have a task flow that will run these jobs in the appropriate order in sequence. Okay? So
Alan, we only have a couple of minutes. There's a great overview of the synchronization. Maybe if you can just at a high level summarize what's different about the replication, and just talk about that for a couple of minutes before we wrap up.
Absolutely. So very quickly here, the real key difference between synchronization and replication is that synchronization is designed to be the service you use for two existing known endpoints. In other words, two applications, Oracle e-business and Salesforce, for example. Data replication is a service that is even more specialized, where the goal is to create an exact copy of some environment, most commonly Salesforce, and to replicate that Salesforce environment, create an exact copy of that data in a secondary location, typically back inside your firewall in a database like Oracle, SQL Server, or MySQL. So in a matter of a couple of minutes, you can set up a job in replication service. I'll call this DRS job 1, where I can say monitor Salesforce. I'm going to pick my Salesforce connection, replicate all objects. Optionally, I could have chosen which objects I wanted, and include or do not include those archived records that are back in Salesforce. Then I go over to step 2 and say, where do I want this replicated copy? I'm going to put this in Oracle, but again, it could have been anywhere you want to put it. And when this runs periodically on some schedule, do I want to do things in an incremental fashion or simply overwrite and rewrite the replicated copy every time? And when I do that, do I want to remove or retain deleted columns or records? With just these choices made, this service will go out and it'll do a number of things. Number one, it will physically create the target objects wherever you pointed it to, in my case, in Oracle. So it will go into Oracle, it will issue the create statements to physically create the objects in Oracle, and then it will run its replication. When it runs again on its next cycle, whatever that schedule is, it will do two things. Not only will it incrementally replicate the changes to the data that happened in Salesforce, but it will also replicate the changes to the schema, and that's really the key. If your Salesforce tends to change, the administrator is going in and adding new fields, modifying existing objects, adding new custom objects, this service will pick up those schema changes, make the changes to the replicated copy, and again, replicate the changes to the data so that you always have an up-to-date exact copy for whatever your use case is, whether it's disaster recovery, for compliance reasons, for on-premise reporting, you have that data locally. And you can
great.
do it in literally a couple of minutes.
And I just wanted to draw in Jeff here for a second, Alan. So Jeff, you got this up and running in under 10 minutes. Is it really kind of a set and forget for you? Is this just, you're running millions of records through the replication service a day. How is that run for you?
Yeah, that for the most part, replication was a set and forget, other than having to go in and we whittled it down a little bit for some things that we just didn't need to be replicating, so we'd exclude those fields out. But for the most part, replication, for us anyway, is quite simple. And it's not something that we go back to and touch, nor that we have issues with managing, maintaining on an ongoing basis.
Okay, great. So, Alan, I think we need to wrap up. We're at the top of the hour. Can you hand it back over a presentation to me? And any closing comments for you, Alan, on kind of the overview or feedback?
No, fortunately, I think we had the opportunity to get where we needed to go today and introducing folks to both of these services. I guess I would just say if there's a more detailed conversation folks would like to have, we'd be happy to do that.
Awesome. Okay, well, I do want to point you all to some resources. Just back on the slides here. I think we're showing. Are we showing my screen? If you visit InformaticaCloud.com, you will you can all kinds of resources. Encourage you to get set for a trial and see for yourself. Jeff noted that he got up and running in under 10 minutes and was creating and running tasks. So pretty impressive. Time to value. And I also just want to highlight in terms of Informatica, a lot of great continued success in this area with our cloud-based data integration service. We have just recently announced our summer release. A lot of really more powerful functionality designed. Many of the features are designed for more of the IT users to improve governance and control of who can run what kind of job and access what source of data and when. So just a few resources. You can contact Jeff, Darren is me, and Alan directly. Informatica Cloud is on Twitter. And again, we have a very active community website available, so just InformaticaCloud.com. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, especially Jeff Henderson from Flexera and Alan Schwab, who provided a demo and hopefully enough detail for you to understand and take some next steps. So thank you very much.
Thank you again for joining us. This concludes today's web conference. You may now disconnect.